All right, go ahead.
Hey guys, welcome to tonight's Prime My Body overview webinar. You're in for a treat. You're going to hear from some amazing doctors, Dr. Chang Ron and Dr. Earl Henslin, talking a lot about obviously what's going on in the world with what's on everybody's minds in COVID-19, coronavirus. I'm pretty sure you have a favorite word to use by now. But also talking about, regardless of what season you're in, the mind, body, spirit connection. Dr. Henslin is a PsyD, and hearing him speak before in the past, I can tell you it's incredible to listen to this individual talk, specifically as it relates to stress and anxiety and things that we deal with. And he has some pretty amazing stuff to show you in the data he's collected and put together regarding the brain and what happens whenever you give it what it needs and do certain things like meditations, etc. You're also going to hear from Dr. Chang Ron, our chief medical advisor. Dr. Ron also runs on any given day the largest integrative functional medicine practice in the United States. He has also been on the front lines fighting the coronavirus and actually had in his possession and deployed in his clinic the first, I believe it was the first antibody test in the country. So thank you, Doc.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
You know, a lot of pretty profound stuff you're going to hear on tonight's call. And before we get started, I want to introduce you to a special guest. Let me bring him on here. Pull him up. This individual is actually the general counsel of PrimeMyBody, and Mr. Skip Leak, you are now promoted to a panelist. If you can turn your camera on, that would be amazing. So Skip Leak is the director, one of the directors of our parent company, a board member. He's also the general counsel of both our parent company and, of course, PrimeMyBody, and was just announced within the last month that he has now a seat on the Texas Hemp Council. And this is a big deal, not just for PrimeMyBody, but for cannabis and hemp, period, because we have someone fighting the good fight that understands exactly what our farmers need, our businesses need, and common sense legislation is awesome when it happens. And Skip Leak, you're a big reason that happened in Texas, and we appreciate all your hard work. It's really cool that, you know, our general counsel, someone that we know so well, is not only representing the interest of us, but also everyone who's interested in cannabis, period, across Texas and across the United States, and for that matter, influence in the world. So if you could take a minute or two and explain to people how big of a deal that is that you've been privileged to have that seat. And thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I've been involved with PrimeMyBody now since its inception, and we were fortunate enough in 2019 to be able to lobby the legislature and create the House Bill 1325, which legalized the growing of industrial hemp in Texas. It also legalizes the processing and sale of products derived from industrial hemp. And through a series of events, PrimeMyBody was instrumental in A, getting me involved in that, and B, allowing me to participate in actually writing part of the law. Since then, because of the fact that we had our hand on actually getting the law passed, our Commissioner of Agriculture, Sid Miller, thought it would be important to have someone like from the retail side of the hemp product business on the Industrial Hemp Council. And so he graciously gave me the opportunity to serve on that council with different people from different aspects of what we do. This is a big deal because what we do on this council is help us as an industry talk to the regulators, create relationships with the regulators in order to bring what I call real life practical experience to the regulators, so they don't just sit there and pass regulations and create roadblocks and things because they're all bureaucrats and we're out here working. And so it all has to work together like a puzzle. And when you get all the pieces working great, like we do here in Texas, then we have the opportunity to really benefit as we go forward by having our hand on both the regulatory process as well as the capacity to influence that process to make it work for everybody in the state. So I'm really blessed to be involved in that. And as an opportunity with PrimeMyBody, it gave me that opportunity. So thank y'all for allowing me to be here tonight.
Skip, Lee, thank you so much for your hard work. So much of what you do goes unnoticed by the eye, but is felt in every other area. And two individuals we're going to hear from tonight, Dr. Chang Ron and Dr. Earl Hensland, these types of common sense regulations not only allow companies like ours to thrive and not have to operate in the gray area legally, but it's opening up funding for research. It's allowing doctors, natural practitioners, different individuals to now give these types of products to their patients without having to worry about, getting into trouble. As ludicrous as that might sound, that's been a conversation for a long time. And really appreciate all that you're doing, Skip, all that you do for PrimeMyBody, and what an exciting thing to know that you're on that council in Texas.
Well, again, thank you guys. And, all we can do is get better and better and better at what we do. And I think we have the best company in the world that does what it does with the byproducts that we're working with. And, Dr. Chang is a big part of that. Dr. Juan is a big part of that. And the people that we have involved from the science side is only the best in the world. So as we go forward, the idea is to make that all work together. And so, again, my job is to create the relationships, foster the relationships, and manage the relationships so that we don't have a lot of blowback from anything that we do. So if we got our hand involved, then we can stay on the right side of things and not get on the wrong side. And so that's what my job is. So guys, look forward to keeping this going as we go forward in the future.
Wait, Skip, before you get off, Skip, before you get off, just want to comment that the only FDA-approved drug in the U.S. that is CBD is Epidiolex, is no longer a controlled substance as of April 6th, 2020. What does that mean for us, you think? It was descheduled.
Well, if that regulation came down and they actually declared it not to be a controlled substance as part of that drug from a CBD standpoint,
right?
That basically means, from a practical standpoint, that in the future we will be able to use industrial hemp oil byproducts like CBD, CBG, and the other items that are created and derived from industrial hemp as more in the context of a dietary supplement as opposed to being viewed as a drug. Now,
excellent.
That's where this is hopefully heading. And that would be my goal, is to make sure that when the Texas Department of State Health Services issues its regulations for processing industrial hemp into products, which will come out in July, August of this year, then if that is the fact, which I have not seen, Dr. Ron, but if that's the case as of April the 6th from the Fed, from the Food and Drug Administration, then basically everything that we're doing would be considered more of a dietary supplement as opposed to a drug. And if that's the case, then my job is to make sure that's how the Texas Department of State Health Services looks at it. So that's my job. So that's what I do.
All right. Thank you, Skip.
That's great. Thanks for being on, Skip. Appreciate you so much.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too. Yep. Guys, moving right along, my job's really simple tonight. Less is more. And getting the opportunity to introduce you to Skip, we could do it entirely, and we will. We'll have Skip on longer in the future to talk more about some of the initiatives PrimeMyBody is doing to basically encapsulate what you're seeing on this site, really controlling from seed to table. So that entire process of growing and cultivating our own hemp in a way that is respectful to the planet and also meets all of the standards and specifications that we have to the end product that you consume is what we're focusing on. And Skip and his team, in addition to many of the other things our CEOs, Paul Rogers, have done and are doing, are just incredible. So I'll hand it over to this guy, this beautiful photo right here, Dr. Cheng Ron. As I mentioned, he runs the largest integrative medicine clinic in the United States. You may wonder, what is that? Well, you've heard of Cleveland Clinic. If we had a second place medal, we'd give it to them tonight. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate and respect what they do. It just means Dr. Ron's doing something right. He's impacting thousands of patients every single month. I'm one of them, with common sense approaches. But when you think about what people are inundated with in terms of what our culture tells them, do what you want, where you want, how you want, when you want, it's a reversal from that. He's really empowering people with the knowledge to address wellness in their life every day instead of sickness when it occasionally shows its face. And obviously he's going to do a great job because his beautiful daughter is there. Daughters, there's the other one, Doc.
Hey, hey.
He's in great hands. Y'all are in great hands tonight with Dr. Cheng Ron. And then, of course, he's going to introduce you as he and Dr. Earl Hensland discuss cannabis and the brain and your emotions and all the things we're dealing with and a lot more. So, guys, thank y'all so much for being on. I'm going to mute out and get my notepad out, and I look forward to learning so much. Thank y'all for being on again.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, Austin, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm muted. Perfect.
I can. And Doc, let me know. I can unshare my screen whenever you're ready to share yours.
Just allow me to share. I'll be sharing in just 2 minutes. All right. So this is Annabelle and this is Cassidy. They're my daughters. Annabelle's about to be 6 and Cassidy is about to be 5.
Monday!
Yeah.
Next Monday.
Yeah, that's right. Next Monday. Okay. And so here, go with mommy. Oh, thank you. And so what we're going to have is going to be talking about with Dr. Hensland some very interesting things in brain chemistry. And it's going to be really exciting because we're going to make it understandable. And Dr. Hensland is a doctor of psychology, awesome guy. We always have fun talking no matter what. And he was on my my webinar for COVID-19 Doctor Summit about 2.5 weeks ago. And we started just nerding out on cannabinoids in the brain. And Dr. Hensland, if you guys don't know, he works with Dr. Daniel Amen and utilizing the SPECT scan to look at brain and brain physiology in hopes to reverse chronic neurological conditions like PTSD and depression and even dementia. And so I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Hopefully this works. Oh, there it goes. And so, did it go full screen, Earl? Is that good?
That's looking good.
Woo! All right. And so, as Austin was talking, I made this slide. There's us. There we are. And so, we want to talk about two of the most powerful weapons to look at the brain. The SPECT scan, and what I use is the neural scan. So Dr. Hensland has looked at a bunch of different SPECT scans. He'll show some tonight, and I've been looking at neural scans. So we're going to put those two worlds together when it comes to hemp. If you guys know what a SPECT scan is, this is from one of my other slides that I presented before. Single photon emission, CT.
Computerized tomography.
Yeah, computed tomography. And so, Dr. Hensland, do you want to just describe what we're really seeing here as a baseline so we can have something to frame off of?
Yeah, a SPECT scan is a metabolic study. And so we look at areas of overactivity and underactivity. And when we know the region of the brain, is either like too much perfusion or not enough perfusion, then we know how to help that particular region. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of medication management and supplement management and so on. And so when you see on the left side there, that Alzheimer's dementia, that shows that as the dementia has progressed, you'll see that there's this dropout of perfusion or blood. We use the word blood flow, you know, it's neurotransmitters, hormones, and a chemical, electrical-like activity.
So these holes are not good, right?
Not good at all. You know,
that's better.
And so you can tell with that person, you know, they're going to have problems with memory, impulse control, mood control, and so on. Because as the Alzheimer's and dementia progresses, then you look at the one on the right side, shows depression, but yet you can also see that there's a lot of good activity going on and good overall blood flow around the brain.
Okay, wonderful. And then this, of course, you guys have been in PMB a while. This is before and after on some quantitative EEGs that we've done in the past of improving in brain function. We also have before and afters on the sorry, it's a little blurry. Before and afters on the SPECT scan. So Dr. Henslin, this is actually before and after on hemp oil, correct?
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is a picture of my brain, and I want to thank Scott Algren, because he's the guy that actually sent me a couple bottles of oil to try, and that's how I got involved with this. And when you look at the scan on the left, in that upper left-hand corner there, you'll see that there's looks like two holes there, and that's the frontal cortex, which has to do with attention, concentration, judgment, impulse control, forethought, and planning. And when you look at the picture just to the right of that, and that left-hand side there, you'll see an injury there going down across the right temporal lobe and over to the frontal cortex. It was like in high school with sports and several car accidents as a teenager. I injured my brain. And then when you look at the picture in the lower right-hand corner, you see those two little holes right there? Well, that's not good, because it kind of shocked me when I saw that, because if that continues to progress as I age, that can actually be a forerunner to dementia. There's a little bit of ventricular formation change there. And then when you look at the one in the lower left-hand side, there's injury in this left frontal temporal lobe. And but then I went on the hemp oil for 2 weeks, and I went off medications and supplements, and it was hemp oil only. And so what was so exciting to see was what we call improved perfusion or blood flow throughout the whole brain. And you can see that change in the frontal cortex. And one of the things about the frontal cortex, the executive part of the brain, dopamine is the main neurotransmitter in that region of the brain. And I normally take a medication called Adderall to help with focus and attention. But you can see that hemp oil by itself improved the perfusion in that region of the brain. So it was actually enhancing what dopamine is there. Now, today, I've continued to use the oil, and I actually use about 75% less Adderall than before. I still use some, but not like I was before. And then when you look on that right side, in that upper, lower right-hand corner there, where notice how those two holes are filled in, and that surface view, which was really exciting for me, because I haven't seen anything within just a couple weeks make that kind of change. And then when you look in the upper right-hand corner there, and see how that blood flow's improved in that injured region there. And even in the left temporal lobe, right down here and below, that's improved blood flow. Now, what does that mean in terms of the temporal lobes? Well, you got to have good blood flow from the frontal cortex all the way down to the temporal lobes, which are the sides of your brain, in order to get new information in and to pull information out. And so if there's injury there, then what happens under stress, people will have trouble retrieving that word, or if their anxiety is too high, it shuts that down. And so people can't access the information they have from the past, what we call short-term memory, long-term memory, and they have difficulty getting new information in. So what you're seeing here, which was kind of exciting when Dr. Amen and I went over my scan, is actually to see that the hemp oil actually improved perfusion throughout the whole brain, which is very, very exciting.
And perfusion just means increased blood flow. So is the SPECT scan looking at specifically perfusion, or is it any sort of functionality?
Well, it looks at overactivity, underactivity.
Okay.
And so, like in those areas, like in that left picture up in the left-hand corner, when you see that drop out there in terms of function, that means more problems with attention, concentration, forethought, which is kind of a big thing in relationships, to think about something before you say it or do it, and then forethought in terms of not making impulsive decisions and choices that can be destructive to you. So, and when you look over here on the right side, the after picture, you can see how that's filled in better and that there's stronger blood flow there. And there's improvements, in the side of the brain, the temporal lobes. So to me, and this is what research does over time, it's kind of exciting to see how hemp oil can play a role in overall brain health and optimizing brain health.
Right. So this is amazing because I'll just point out for the people out there is that if you can have the circle right here kind of fill into this brain. I mean, this is not normal. This is not what we normally see in the brain changing over 2 weeks, right? This is something that's pretty dramatic, correct?
It is very dramatic. It'd be like the equivalent, to get that same kind of result, the person would have to have numerous, say, hypobaric oxygen treatments to get, when I looked at before and after scans, to get that kind of improved metabolism and perfusion and better blood flow in the brain. And that's kind of exciting because in your research with the neural scans, you're showing changes in activity and brainwave activity within minutes after taking the hemp oil, and then as time goes on, improve function. And so that's what's kind of exciting, because there's the way the oil actually helps improve overall blood flow throughout the brain. Now, I have people who've been able to transition off of medications just by using the hemp oil. And then I've also had people who are on different medication and supplement protocols where when they added in the hemp oil, it actually made it more effective, and that they got better anxiety relief, or they got better focus and attention or mood control.
Yeah, so we kind of see the very similar thing on the neural scan as well, which I kind of go into. But let's go over this next picture real quick. This is something I'm not familiar with. Can you go over this? This is still the SPECT scan, correct?
Yeah. Now, this would be the inside active view. We just looked at the outside view, and this is more where you're looking at the cortical surface on that first set of slides. And now this is looking at the inward, more active view. Now, in that left-hand side, you can see where those two little, looks like eyes right there. That's called the left and right basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia is also connected to the amygdala. And so it's like the anxiety thermostat of the brain, where it sets the level of anxiety we have in our body, and it influences muscle tissue and viscera. So like neck and shoulder tension, headaches, migraines, can impact the GI system. It seems to be a little bit different for everybody. And when you look at that upper left-hand picture, when you look at the bottom of that, where all that red is, well, that's called the cerebellum. And the cerebellum is right here at the base of the skull, and it plays a huge role. Like one of the reasons, like we tell everybody to exercise, we all need to be walking and exercising, working out, hiking, because this region, by doing that physical activity, it actually helps the blood flow all the way through that. And then it improves the blood flow in the frontal cortex when we're moving. And that's why when we work out or something, we get ideas or solutions or motivations because of the frontal cortex is more activated. Now, when you look at the after scan, and you look at that cerebellum, can you see how that's improved in volume? So it's actually bigger, which is a great thing in terms of balance, motor control, and improved frontal cortex function, particularly as people age. You want that area to be healthy because that helps us from falling and tripping and things like that. Now, on the left picture, at the before picture, when you look at that upper right-hand picture, you'll notice there's no red right there. Now, that's the posterior cingulate. And that kind of alarmed me because when we look at brain scans for people, and we see an absence of the posterior cingulate, it can be like an early warning sign of potential dementia. And so that was kind of alarming to see that on that scan. But then what was exciting on the after scan, if you look at that picture in the upper right-hand corner, if you move that little white circle there up a little bit, you'll see that there's activity there in that posterior cingulate that wasn't there before. And so that actually helped improve that perfusion there and activated that region of the brain that didn't have that activity before.
So the red is good then. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, the red is good in that area. It wasn't good to see that there wasn't, because I would, if I was talking to a patient, I would have them looking at ways to improve memory, brain training skills and things like that, because I'd be wanting to come up with like a preventive dementia program, So it's kind of exciting. I think as time goes on, we get a chance to look at more brain scans and we actually start to do research. It adds a reality about how hemp oil plays a huge role in optimizing brain health, And
this is still 2 weeks, Earl?
2 weeks.
Wow. Okay. So
yeah, that was what was really staggering to me, was to see that kind of change just in 2 weeks.
So yeah, it looks like you have more activity over here, and then and basically you're seeing areas light up that they didn't before, even just after 2 weeks, right?
Right. And then when you look at that basal ganglia that looks like eyes right there on the right side,
here.
Yeah, that's on the left side there. That's before picture. And you look at the right side, it's actually smaller, which means there's less anxiety on that right side. Now, when I did this and went on this protocol with the hemp oil, I didn't tell my staff because I was just kind of curious as to what would happen. And when I got the after scan, I brought them both up. The guys that work with me, they just started laughing. And they said, the last couple of weeks, we were wondering what in the world was going on with you, because you were kind of freakily, eerily calm. One guy wanted to give me a dose of Adderall to make sure I was still awake. But he said, but yet you were listening and processing information and handling things like you normally do.
So this correlated with you improving clinically, like your brain function, right?
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And they noticed that right away. And what I also noticed is that my sleep improved, and even if I woke up in the middle of the night, I dropped back off easier than I had before. Because what happens with the hemp oil, and now we have that product called Calm, is it helps calm down the CBG and the CBD and everything else that's in it. It helps calm down that basal ganglia. And then that cingulate in that upper right-hand corner, you see those dots right there. That's what we call, that's the part of the brain that keeps us awake at night. It's like a gerbil on a wheel. And we can look at another scan to look at that like we did before. But but that anxiety center goes down, then slows down those thoughts so a person can actually drop off to sleep. Yeah. Yeah, this scan actually shows, when you see that activity right in the middle in the upper part of the scan, that's called the anterior cingulate. And if you draw a line from that down to the basal ganglia and then down to the limbic system, which looks like a nose right there, and then you go back up to the other eye and then back up here, see how that forms a diamond? Well, that diamond pattern is what we call PTSD, and we can actually see that on a scan. And what happens when this basal ganglia is so lit up, it causes that cingulate that's right there in the middle there, like in the forehead region, it makes it like a gerbil on a wheel. And that's when a person's having trouble dropping off to sleep. Those thoughts are rolling around over and over and again, and it's hard to calm down and get out of that adrenaline state to actually drop off to sleep. And so, and today, with COVID virus, and particularly for first responders, sleep can be a little bit harder because people worry and fret. But when this anxiety center is calmed down with the CBD, CBG oil, well, then a person can shift out of those thoughts, just say, well, I've done all I can do today. Tomorrow's tomorrow, but right now, the best thing for me to do is to sleep. Because sleep itself helps strengthen a good night's sleep helps strengthen the immune system, which is what we're all interested in. And lower left and right basal ganglia, whenever you lower anxiety, you keep yourself out of that fight or flight phenomena, which also helps strengthen immune system function as well when they're not in that high cortisol kind of adrenaline state.
No, that's great, because I can reflect that on this scan, which is the neural scan right here. And what you're talking about in that diamond shape, I can tell you on this is that these are the lower frequencies, the 2 to 4 hertz and 4 to 6 hertz. These are the sleep frequencies. 6 to 8 hertz, you're getting into low alpha. So green is normal in this case. And what's happening that you're starting to see it turning blue. So the power is starting to go lower, right?
Wow.
Go higher. The power is starting to go higher. And then what happened is that when you get to fuchsia, you're at 4 standard deviations away from the normal. That's right here. So whenever we see this, sleep is involved. This is PTSD also, the similar pattern. And then so talking about the involvement of the basal ganglia. Now this is surface brain mapping. And the ones on the inside you talk about is looking at what's called the E-Loretta. And so this is also just 2 hours after the CBD-CBG combination right here. And we're able to see some pretty dramatic changes right away with clinical improvements as well. And so everything that you're reflecting on that SPECT scan, we can actually also see on the neural scan as well. So it's nice to see the congruency. It's also nice to see that it correlates clinically as well. So this is really cool. And then so basically in the PrimeMyBody science page, this is the science main page that's right here. We're able to, where is it? No, brain mapping right here. So let's, it talks about brain mapping and what it is. And so first we looked at the SPECT scan, guys. Now we're looking at the brain map, looking at quantitative EEG and analyzing different aspects of the brain, looking at markers of cognition, looking at markers of memory, attention, and whatnot. And what we did is, let's click on the former player study first. This is the former NFL player study that we did right before the Super Bowl. And so for a lot of the NFL guys, they seem to have very similar issues when it comes to the brain. And they look a lot like the PTSD brains that we have on the neuroscan. Do you know, does physical trauma look like PTSD on the SPECT scan as well, Dr. Hensland?
Say that again.
Does physical trauma like concussions, is it similar to a PTSD pattern on the SPECT scan as well?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
Yeah.
We see that a lot here as well. And so what we did we took these awesome 42 former NFL players, wonderful guys, and we got them in, and we did it before and after on the Focus.
Yeah.
So this time, instead of waiting 2 hours, we didn't wait at all. We just did back to back on the neuroscan.
Wow.
And so the neuroscan takes about 25 minutes. It's 22 minutes of them actually doing activity, mimicking a calm state, a sleepy state. 2 of them actually did fall asleep, sleepy state, and then mimic them in a hypervigilant state doing certain activities. So it's kind of look like a stress test of the brain. So what happened is that these NFL players, one of the main benefits that each of them expressed was that I'm able to focus better on the second one. And usually what that means is that people are able to, do the games a whole lot better, right? But they didn't know that the games were actually placebo. We wanted to see what their brain is doing while they're doing the games. So what we have is sort of this theta beta ratio, which is a ADHD marker that was defined in pediatrics a long time ago. Now we use in adults for markers of attention, and we're seeing a dramatic improvement. And speaking of Adderall, this is a very similar effect of that. And so this is the attention markers, and this is on info processing and brain speed. So this is basically sensory. As sensory is coming in, how fast is the brain starting to process? So we have some dramatic improvements here as well on the improvements. And then you also have visual response time. So when the light hits the eyes, how long does it take for the brain to actually register that? And so essentially, this is what I like to call nootropic, right? Similar to Adderall and Vyvanse and stuff like that. Right. And so we're seeing these similar patterns, on these neuroscan patterns, just like what you see on the SPECT scan. So that's really cool.
Because what it says is that the hemp oil is actually improving perfusion in that whole frontal cortex area. Because when you calm down that basal ganglia, then you do get better blood flow throughout the brain. Right. That's exciting.
Yeah. And so what's even more exciting for me is quality of life.
Right.
Is let's take away the former players and let's look at some military vets here on the quality of life. Is it working? Let me go back to the science page, go from there, go to quality of life study. Come on, page, load up. All right. So anyways, on the quality of life study, so we tested 121 people. And here's a new pet line. We tested 121 people. And we wanted to look at different scoring systems in terms of, here we go. Haha.
Now we're talking.
Here it goes. All right, we're in business. We looked at 121 people. These were actually military vets. Some with PTSD, some without, and we wanted to look at different scoring systems. So I'm going to start with the one that's used in psychiatry a lot, which is the PSS, the Perceived Stress Scale.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, the PSS. If you look at this, I mean that's a dramatic improvement from month 0 to month 1, month 1 to month 2, month 2 to month 3, with all statistical significance from each month to the next. So I actually didn't expect this because I expected the curve to flatten a lot earlier. I expected, maybe month 1 people were doing well, maybe between month 2 and 3 not so well. But we're seeing that that's not the case. So people do better as the time goes on, which is awesome. So this is called a perceived stress scale, guys, and basically it's a scoring system of perceived stress. And it's a great psychological tool for measuring like the perception of stress.
Right.
And then this one is called as the ISS or ISI, sorry, which is the Insomnia Severity Index. So this is looking at sleep. Of course, the higher the number, the worse the sleep is. And so as once again, month 1 to month 2, month 2 to month 3, it's significantly improved. And once again, for some of the other things that I've seen, like magnesium and some other hemp brands, and looking at L-theanine, we see those individually, they do not improve like this month after month. They usually flatten off a lot earlier after month one, even after week one. And so, so this is really exciting to see, and this makes sense kind of based on what we see in the brain perfusion on the SPECT scan, what we see on the QEEG on the neuroscan, right? And
exactly.
so, yeah. So, and this really just pumps me up because it's kind of continues to validate the things that we're doing, knowing that this actually works, which is great, right?
Well, then, can you also say that, like, if people aren't noticing a big change in month one, to encourage them to stay with it, because there'll be improvements months 2 and 3 and so on?
Absolutely. That seems to be the case.
Yeah.
And then the MSQ is not used in psychology. MSQ is used in functional medicine. It's called a medical symptom questionnaire. And it looks at symptoms in terms of the higher the number, the worse in your symptomology and the toxicity. And so anybody above 25, we have to get a hold of. And these people started close to 60. They were able to get down after 3 months as well. And so that's really exciting. I think that we're improving quality of life. We're improving wellness, and we're seeing on these brain images that we're having improvements, throughout. And this is your brain and throughout. Right. We're seeing on the quantitative EEGs that there's actually improvements throughout. And so this is kind of a no-brainer, no pun intended. And so,
well, what I'm wondering, Dr. Ron, is when I see that improved perfusion, I think what that can also might mean, which only research will tell, but it's almost like any supplement or anything a person's medication is taking, they're going to show increased benefit from it as well.
Right. No, absolutely. I think it's without a doubt, this is one of the most exciting things that we see. And then also just taking it down a few notches for you guys looking out there. And kudos to everyone. There's a lot of participants here. No one has dropped off yet. This is amazing. And just so you guys know, this is not something that I don't think anyone's really talked about before, looking between quantitative EEG and SPECT scan.
No.
So for those of you who are nerdy like us in the room, get excited because we certainly are. But it's really creating neural circuits and neural pathways that really help the way that we function, and that's truly amazing in not just neuroscience, but I think in life in general, And so, Austin, are you still there? Hopefully.
Doc, I'm here. I'm listening. I actually have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
It's I remember sitting with a therapist once, and she looked at me and she said, "You have an anxiety disorder." And it was the last time I was ever sat with her, because I refused to believe that I felt like my body was responding in a way that was creating anxiety, but that I could figure it out.
Right.
And obviously I over the course of time I did, and I realized I didn't have a disorder. I was in a season. I was in a circumstance. And what y'all are talking about tonight is a reminder of that. I feel like it's so empowering. I would love for y'all to revisit, or maybe just kind of drive the point home or emphasize what y'all are saying is you can have an issue with your brain, maybe because of trauma physically, maybe because of trauma emotionally, maybe because of poor choices you've made, and you can actually give your body what it needs. And tonight's example is we're talking about CBD and CBG, particularly our focus product, and your body can actually repair and restore and heal itself.
Yeah. So, driving that point home is that, the scans and the numbers don't lie, right? Yeah. We're seeing actual quantitative measurements in numbers and in mathematical depiction models of what the brain, actually looks like. And I think that we really have to sit down and understand that, Austin, when you were diagnosed with a anxiety disorder, a disorder just means that you need to put it back into order. That's it. a disease.
She said it in a way like it was permanent, like concrete, man. And I was like, I refuse to accept that.
And same thing with disease, right? This disease is just dis-ease. So get it back into ease. And there's certain ways that we do it. I think that hemp and cannabinoids are such a powerful thing. What do you think, Dr. Henslin?
Well, definitely, because to me, there's kind of a simple principle. Because we got the data with the neuroscans, improved quality of life, and the medical questionnaire, and with the brain scans, SPECT scans. If you get the hardware working better, it's a whole lot easier to change the software issues. And that's what's kind of exciting about this, because there's no doubt that this improves brain health and can optimize brain health, which makes it easier for people to change things they need to change in their lives.
Yeah. And so, Austin, there's a lot of stuff that I think people can do to not just improve, I shouldn't say brain health, we really should say health in general, because the brain controls everything. It controls our hormone balances, it controls our immune system, it controls how much food we absorb in the gut, right? And so there's all this hysteria that's really going on right now with COVID-19, with the economy. We picked up 2 suicidal, patients over the last 2 weeks and started working with them. I think that the brain is the source of genesis of a lot of different things that we have in our body. And it's also the source of healing. And so when we're able to look at the brain in terms of, hey, I have the ability to do something for myself that allows the disease or dis-ease back into ease, allow the disorder back into order, right? Because we're always on a spectrum. We're always on a spectrum. And we really have to slide it that one direction. And I think that hemp and cannabinoids and CBD and CBG and everything that we talked about, obviously looking at these scans, obviously looking at talking to former NFL players, talking to the military vets, obviously is doing something. So you can't dispute that.
Yeah, and it's really significant, the NFL football player study that you did. Dr. Amen did one as well with before and after scans. And